Hi, I'm Ray Villafane. I've been carving pumpkins for over 15 years. In this DVD, I'm going to take you through all the steps necessary to carve a 3D pumpkin utilizing some simple ribbon loop tools and a quality pumpkin. It's important that you start off with a pumpkin that's heavy for its size. This is going to likely indicate that you have a pumpkin that has a thick flesh to it. We're going to need that when we're pulling out a 3D face. We're also going to need to dig as far as we can without breaking through. If you break through, grab another pumpkin. I'm also going to take you through all the steps on blocking in the face, adding on some other pieces of pumpkin for features like the ears, as well as all the details of the eyes. With that, let's get started. Okay, what I have here, I'm going to draw out the hairline with a permanent marker. I'm using a red permanent marker. I suppose you could probably use orange. It'll be easier to take off. Later on, I'll take rubbing alcohol and get off any residue that might be left on the rind. Just sketching out a hairline. I want to leave the rind on the pumpkin to indicate some hair. I thought that might be neat. So I got a little maquette here, and I'm not going to stay totally true to it, but kind of want to do a little troll figure. So got a little troll head I made here. So I want to give, just drawing out the hair. Coming in with a knife, I'm gonna cut over my line. Try to stay true to the line and just kind of trace it out. I want to go deep enough that when I go in with a second cut to chisel out the pieces, that the pieces fall out easily. I mean, you don't want to bury the knife, but you definitely want to get inside the rind a little bit. And maybe like at least an 1/8 inch or so. Kind of follow around. Could have done a better job sketching the hair, I guess. But I'm not too worried about it because, like I said, I'll just wipe that stuff clean. I'm going in here at an angle and just kind of chisel out the pieces. If you mess up and cut off some of the pumpkin rind, you could always readjust your hairline, but just try to be careful doing this because you can sometimes take off too much rind and you will have to adjust your hairline if that happens. Get carried away and you might have a bald pumpkin. You could see how the pumpkin, this pumpkin's sweating. It's really has a lot of moisture in it. That's good. Tells you that, you know, as you go in to carve it, you're gonna have a nice juicy moist pumpkin to carve into. Nothing worse than a really dry pumpkin. Sometimes when you get a really dry pumpkin, as you get towards the center of it, it's almost like carving hash browns. It just kind of wants to shred and everything. So now that I see this this moisture weeping from the pumpkin, it's a good indication that I probably won't run into those shreddy, dry areas in the center of the pumpkin. So just kind of gently go around the edge, taking away the rind. Don't go in too deep. You want the hairline, the rind to look like it's lying on right on top of the pumpkin. So you just want to just cut a little bit away so that when we come back and scrape later, we won't accidentally, scrape away at that hair. And we're not skinning the whole entire face with this knife. We're just simply going around the edge and giving ourselves a little bit of a border so that when we take a loop tool to this, we'll have some, we can stay away from the hair a little bit. Again, try to make your cuts. If you do a cut and the piece doesn't come out, don't pry it off too hard. Just kind of recut it if you have to. You don't want to tear pieces off. You just want nice clean lines. So I got a little rubbing alcohol on this paper towel, and it takes off the marker. You know, it's permanent marker. It takes it off pretty easily. But like I said, you could probably use orange. Orange might even be a better choice. Now here I have a small loop tool. I don't want to use too big because I got to get in some of these corners. It's a flat loop tool, a ribbon loop tool. I'm just kind of scraping gently just to get the rind off. Now loop tools come in all different shapes and sizes. This is a good choice, a good size choice to remove this around the hair. Eventually we'll take a larger loop to do some of the initial sculpting, but that one is pretty good. So now I'll move to this larger one here, and this is one we're going to use this quite a bit. It's got a nice pointy front here for getting into certain angles, and wider. The other side is kind of wider, so it's a versatile tool to lay out the face as well as to skin the pumpkin. Normally I would have started off with this tool if I had not did the hairline like I just laid out, but this really removes the rind easily. Just take away, just kind of scraping away the rind. Not doing any sculpting, just taking away, revealing the area of the face that we want to show. Once in a while I get carried away when I'm removing the rind and I take away too much of it and can't really tell it's a pumpkin carving when you're done. It just kind of looks like the yellow or orange sculpture, so be careful of that. I like the color of this pumpkin. It's nice and rich orange. It'll show shadows real well. So I'm just going to start sketching in where the eyes go. It's kind of like I have one eye open and one eye closed. I figured this would be a good way to show how one might sculpt an open eye as well as a closed eye. Plus it gives a little bit of asymmetry to the face and kind of give it a little troll-like expression. So I'm trying to, right away I'm establishing the brow line. And kind of want to establish the eyeball on this side here. In the beginning stages, one of the first things you want to do is lay out the eyes, because the eyes are like the deepest set feature of the face, and it's important for us to find out how thick this pumpkin is. So we want to start scraping away, and kind of those tear duct areas are going to be the deepest area. So as I sketch in, I got a little frown going on this side and the open eye over here. As I sketch it in, I want to dig in and feel for the depth of the pumpkin. And what I'll do is every once in a while I'll press into the pumpkin to see how thick it is. And if I get a little bit of bounce when I press in, it indicates that I might be getting towards the end. Now I would hope I wouldn't get towards the end this early in the carving. This is a pretty thick pumpkin, so I'm okay. You definitely want to choose, when you choose your pumpkin, you always want to choose pumpkins that are heavy for their size. That indicates you're going to have a really good thick meat. So as I block in this eye, I want to, I'm carving it a little deep into the face, not too much, but I want to establish a spherical shape here, and I want to leave a little bit of a gap, sort of like for a bridge of the nose. But even the nose area, the bridge of the nose is going to be recessed in a little. Skip a little, maybe, I don't know, depending on the size of your pumpkin. On this one, I'm going to skip like an inch, 2 inches. And start the other side of the eye. Now this eye I'm going to have squinted shut a little. But on both, I still need to search to find how deep this pumpkin is. And I want to make sure that I create round spheres, especially for this open eye. So I'm scraping away, pushing it back into the pumpkin a little bit, but the whole time kind of working that spherical shape out of the material that I have. Now this eye's closed here. He's got a little bit of a cheek here because he's got this eye squinted, closed shut. So he's got to want to establish some sort of the cheeks pressing up against the eye here. Again, pushing even the eye area, scraping away because it is recessed into the face. Kind of want to give a little hint of where the nose might be. Now the nose, on this troll, I decided to make the nose really low profile, almost like kind of like a chimp type nose. And I'll get some of that hair going a little. One of the reasons that is that it makes it a lot easier, especially if you're beginning pumpkin carving or subtractive carving, especially with limited material, a limited thickness material like a pumpkin. It's got a hollow inside. The nose can be rather difficult. So anyway, again, digging in a little deeper. And I'll keep doing that as I'm laying out this face. I'll continue to search and dig into those areas. And once in a while, I find a pumpkin that's super thick. I think I found the end, and all of a sudden I realize it's way thicker. So I recarve everything that I've done deeper into the pumpkin. Taking this tool is really good. It's got a pointy edge to it, so I can even sketch in. You can see I'm kind of like sketching the eyes in here a little bit of the wrinkles to the eyes, and trying to develop on the other eye, trying to develop a circular shape. Give a little bit of bridge of a nose here. And the nose I'm going to keep small again. Like I said, I want to kind of a big nose. You could even glue a nose on. That's one thing that we've, it's possible. Maybe in another DVD tutorial I'll explain some techniques. Super glue works wonders. So that's kind of scraping away. Is that? I figure right around here we'll have his cheek, his mouth, his lips kind of recessing into this area. Push that back. You got to remember, we're not drawing this, we're sculpting it, so we want to. It's easy to at times think left to right, top to bottom. If you're not used to sculpting, you often forget to go into the carving. So while this mouth goes from left to right, it does wrap around and go into it. And so we definitely want to push these lines and push that smile deep into the pumpkin. It'll bring out some nice shadows under this cheek as well. Same thing with the eyes here. Give a little bit of a temple area. We want this cheek to really feel like it's pressing up against those eyes. So let's get under there and scrape away a little side for the temple. And that'll really establish his cheekbone up in that area. Careful not to scrape away the hair. See, we got a little bit of a cheekbone going across the side. Let's go a little bit deeper in here. And scrape away onto these sides. I'm going to push this entire eye a little bit deeper into the cavity. This is kind of like the process you do the whole way, is really find your forms and then push them deeper into it. The thing is, you want to go as deep as you can, if without breaking through, of course. But in the beginning, it's not uncommon to break through. I mean, a lot of times people try doing this type of carving and they give up because they break through. Here I got a small little tool, and I'm going to use this, and it's a small loop tool, got a little bit of point to it. And this will allow for me to get into tighter areas. And I'm going to search for the thickness here. Again, just carefully scraping away those tear duct areas. I have to go deep. I don't want to break through. Like I was saying, people give this a try and they often break through and give up. I mean, I've broken through so many pumpkins. I've broken through so many pumpkins that I intimately know how the material behaves. Again, pushing, seeing if there's any bounce. It seems pretty solid, so I can dig in a little deeper. Go back to that flat tool so that I can shape, try to build a little bit of a spherical shape in these. You can't look at breaking through as a failure, because what it does is it teaches you that material, how that material behaves, how the pumpkin behaves deep inside the pumpkin. And the more familiar you get with it, the less likely you are to break through later on. I can go real deep in this area and pull some shadows out. Kind of come down and around the eyes. You want to kind of, this eye, you want to get that frown, the shadows, and this cheekbone kind of wrapping around. So, pay attention to how the light is hitting it. In sculpture, you're really trying to you're recording the light as it goes across the surface. So, hold the tool and kind of scrape away and try to capture those nice shadows in there. Get this a little bit rounder. Use this tool. I want the brow to kind of look like it's lifting up on this side, and it's got one eye open, so I want to take away some material here and lift up that brow. Reveal a little bit of an eyelid on this side. Scraping away and smoothing this out. And I'll go back to this eye and push it back and gently push it back. Push it back and push it back as I sculpt this. Kind of want to see how they take this pointy tool. I'm just going to sketch out where I think might want to see the eyelid go. The crease. I just want to lift up this outer corner. I kind of want to have his eye. I want this eye opened up, but opened up in a way that's it's almost like he's lifting that brow. So I'll have to pull some of the temple away, and then try to get this eye looking like I want. Take this small tool here, and I'm gonna just kind of shape where the nose was gonna sit on the face. It's a real shallow nose, but I think it's fitting for the character. Pull some really deep shadows in those eye socket areas. I often switch tools constantly. There's no single tool that's perfect, for the job. Well, sometimes there are, but feel free with whatever feels. You might tend to prefer a certain tool to do a certain thing, but I'm constantly switching tools back and forth. This pointy one here is good for sketching this bottom eyelid. I want this eyelid to be, the bottom eyelid to be raised a little. I'll take this flat one. It'll be good to kind of establish some slight shadows of the muscles here as I go around the cheekbone. I switch to this bigger tool here and go underneath this cheek. Kind of scratch away this guy, get this cheekbone, and push this mouth opening even deeper. I want to try to really feel like this cheek is kind of bulged up around here. So only made to make it bulge just to kind of take away from underneath it and around it. Tool this eye a little bit. On this corner, I figured there'd be some. He's lifting his brow, lifting his eyebrow up, so there'll be some radiating wrinkles that are stretching up. Take a little bit more mass away from underneath here, get some of that shadow. You see, I'm constantly switching back and forth to tools, drawing in where I want this eyelid raised. You could hold this square tool at an angle so that you're using the corner to create some lines, or you could just hold it flat to tool an area smooth. I like using that flat tool to get the roundness of the eye. You can see from the side the profile is fairly. It's there. It's with the pumpkin carving. It's kind of an illusion what you're trying to create, because you got limited thickness to get a really good profile. But with some cheating, you can really get to pull it off. Like I said, with this type sort of nose, this style nose, it makes it a whole lot easier. Take this and pull out some more shadows. Constantly going in there and scraping the eye a little bit further back, a little bit further back, a little bit further back. With this big tool, I'm going to sketch in where I may want a tooth. Like a little tooth that's. And I'm going to sketch it lightly because I want the tooth to look like it's pressing into his skin, his upper lip. He's got like an underbite. We get some teeth on this side as well. And it's almost on the same plane. I'm just gently indicating where these teeth might be. I don't want to carve around them too deep, because I want them to look like they're on the same plane. They're pressing into the skin, if anything. You get a little bit of more roundness in this area here. As you can see, we keep going back to areas and re-sculpting them. It's a really slow process of scraping, and slowly finding the face. You don't want to try and dig really deep and pull out the forms right away, because you might break through. You higher chance of breaking through that way. And you can't add stuff back with this, so you really want to be careful. So it's best to approach this in a slow, methodical way of scraping, as opposed to cutting big wedges out. And that's the great thing about these loop tools. They're made for scraping as opposed to cutting. Go in here and get this wrinkle coming down. I want his left eye, I want that brow to be nice and deep and pull down. So in order to make it look like it's pushing down, I'm going to take some of this top area away up in this corner. You can imagine that the muscles are compressing around his eyes. So if I take away some of this area here and leave it thicker on the bottom, it'll really look like he's squinting that eye closed. Kind of scrape some of this. Be careful with the hair there. Just pull and clean up some of this. I'll take a little bit away from just underneath it a little, to show where that thickness is, where the brow actually sits. Alright, so just pull a little bit of it away. And get some wrinkles going up in here. So it gets a kind of a meatiness to it. And let me clean up down in this area here just a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm going underneath it just a bit. If you can imagine that eyebrow going across his face there. So, and I'm gonna wet this pumpkin. You want to keep the pumpkin moist as you're working on it. Always have a spray bottle handy and just put some water on it. Spray some water while you're working. Pumpkin knows that you cut into it, so it'll start drying out on you. I mean, this pumpkin was wet. It was weeping quite a bit when we started, but it's important to keep the pumpkin as moist as possible. Heck, even when you're done carving it, people always ask, how do you make these things last? Cold and wet. If you can keep the pumpkin cold and wet, it'll last much longer. So you don't want it to dry out. So I'm going in here and kind of scraping away where the lip line is going to be, where the mouth opening. I'm using this flat tool, and I'm using it when I go along the bottom. I hold it so that I'm really pulling I'm pulling the highlights so that the plane of the bottom lip faces the light. And when I do the top lip, I do the opposite. I want to create some shadows, but I'm going to scrape some of the tooth. So here's the teeth that are going to be pressing into it. And notice something. It doesn't even look like I'm doing much as far as carving teeth, per se. I'm just gently outlining where they're going to sit. Like I said, they're almost on the same plane. I want them really to feel like they're pressed way into it. So just a little bit of an indication of where they're at. Don't go too deep in this area. You want them to start actually. You want to give enough thickness to the bottom lip so that they're sitting behind that bottom lip. But as far as the top lip goes, have them press right into it. So you don't want to go behind them too much. So a little bit of shadow's enough. Take this pointy tool and kind of establish where the wrinkles below his eye might sit. Give this guy a lot of character. I like him to have some cool looking wrinkles around his eyes. And I'll take, while I have this tool out, I'll kind of figure out his teeth, how his teeth might sit. I think I'll give him some funky old teeth over here. I used a flat tool here to get in there and smooth out where that skin might be going behind those two teeth over here. And just a little bit of a shadow to show that they're pressing in. This flat tool is really good for, if you hold it at the right angle, it'll do all the work for you. Scrape away, and I'll go to this little one to reach back in here. Pull some nice shadows. You see how deep we're going, and that mouth is turning into the pumpkin. Then the muscles, let's see, we get a little bit of this mouth muscle, this lip going on here. And let's refine this and smooth it a little so the muscles will wrap around and there'll be some shadows created here. Again, use the tool to help reinforce the highlights by the angle in which you use it. And get underneath the lip. Draw in the shadows a bit more. Get a little bit deeper right behind that tooth. And we'll go back to this big tool and kind of clean up in here a little. I like this point on this big tool really allows for you to do little things like noodle on this tooth at the same time of blocking in big forms of the face. It's a really great tool. Most of the loop tools this size are a bit rounder and they don't have this sharp edge here. Triangle tool designed this for me, so It was one thing I used to always modify my tools to do that. And you're probably gonna modify. You'll end up modifying. If you get into pumpkin carving, hopefully you're not just buying my tools or anybody's tools, but making your own. At some point, that's you really get into it. You have there's so many tools you'll make for little things. The starter sets that I have are a great place to start, but you may end up having. I have dozens and dozens of tools, so you're really into pumpkin carving when there's not enough tools on the market and you're modifying for little things. I think every sculptor does that with these tools, but I've done my best to give you a great start with some of these. With this tool here, it's definitely by far one of my favorite. Spray it with some water again. And you can see the face is starting to come out here now. The eyes are set in there. Let's pull some more underneath this chin, get some mouth. And jowls. And just scraping, pulling a little shadow from underneath that bottom lip. Cheek. Just kind of pulling some forms out in the chin and jowl area here. This little tool I probably should be using a bigger tool here, but sometimes these little ones are pretty fun to get in there on the bottom. Get a little bit of a double chin down there. And smooth this. This pumpkin is really, it's got a really good, it's nice and moist and wet. Sometimes you're gonna get pumpkins that have, lots of grain to them and chipping on you as you're carving. You gotta be, just be careful. If it starts chipping on you, try going a different direction. It's sort of like wood, there's a grain to them. But the last thing you wanna do is think that all pumpkins are the same. If you get a bad pumpkin, don't get discouraged. Find a better one. And I'm gonna get in here with this tool and pull a little bit more shadows here and there. And get a little mini pocket around here. And just want to scrape away and pull this nose here. I think I could push it down a little bit further. Get some nostrils. Using this tool, you kind of scrape around the sides and just kind of establish the nose so as it goes down, it meets the upper mouth area there. I want to grab this sanding sponge. This is like one of those Scotch-Brite pads or any sort of brand name you can get. And this is great to kind of clean up some of the scrape marks and get rid of some of that noise. Smooths it out. If you sit with this, you could smooth out all these details, get this piece looking like glass. And at the end, we'll go back, we'll go and hit this entire sculpture with these sanding pads. But I just want to clean it up a little here so I could see, get a little bit more detail into this area. It's getting a little bit rough. And just get a little hint of that going on there. And just polish this. Smooth this area out. You could even use those copper scrub pads, almost like not steel wool, but those copper pads. They're like I don't know, just steel pads, but not the fine steel wool type stuff. But you take those copper pads and you could really scrub down pumpkins, but it'll leave some gouges here and there, so you have to come back with the Scotch-Brite pad. You typically use those for big pumpkins. Now I'm going to go back to this small, really small loop here for vine detail. And this pointy loop is really good for getting into tight spots. And I'm going to kind of refine what I have going on with the eyes. Just gonna, I'll usually hit things. I'll sketch in the eye area, all the parts of the eyes. We'll come in later with a knife, but I'm gonna sketch in where the eyelids are gonna go exactly with this at this point. So I'm gonna have the tear duct going down into here. It dips a little deeper, right at that tear duct area. And this should be the deepest part of my pumpkin. So, or deepest part of most anyone's pumpkin if you're doing a human face. I try not to hollow the pumpkins out. I mean, we could hollow this out, but it's just gonna go faster, rot faster, dry out faster. And I mean, you can light it up, but it's gonna be like there's gonna be some pumpkin guts in there that we don't want to scrape away, because if you pull that away, you're probably gonna tear the inside of the surface, because we've carved so deep into this pumpkin that it's just, by the time you get to this eye area, it's just hanging there. So I'm taking this little flat tool and I'm just kind of tooling it nice and smooth, and take my pointy loop here and sketch in those eyelids. Really make sure you get a nice spherical shape here. If you stop and look at what you have, a lot of people, if you're starting off with sculpture, you've drawn a circle as opposed to a sphere. So make sure that it's wrapping around. And we'll just kind of go up into this and give the crease of where that upper eyelid is going. The fold into which the eyelid's folding into. And we'll kind of go up and around here. We'll take a knife to all this and kind of make it all sharper and pull out those accents later, but right now we just kind of want to find where we're going to be putting it all. Start putting some wrinkles in here. These wrinkles are going to fold into the crease of the eye here. And we'll have some that come down as well. There we go. I'll give a few on this side too. Like I said, I want this wrinkly old troll. And around this nostril. Let's do this one nostril a little bit higher. We'll get some. The one side of the nose there's gonna be more wrinkles radiating from, just because he has that eye squinted shut. So we'll pull these wrinkles down, and they'll all tuck into that eye. And let's pull out some material to show where we're gonna have these nostrils. Draw in where that squint is going to go. It's not just a straight line. Make sure you kind of follow the shape of the eye. And that bottom eyelid will have some wrinkles going across. Maybe we'll have some kind of slanting at an angle too. Like I said, this is a slow process of slowly scraping away
And you could draw, you know, with this little loop tool, this pointy little loop tool, you can really draw with it well. So after you get the shapes blocked in, it's really effective in kind of drawing in some realistic wrinkles with it. Now, some of these wrinkles we'll take a knife to and sharpen up, but some of them will leave kind of soft like this. You want to have that variation. And we get some crow's feet kind of radiating from this corner, going around that eye. And you want to fade it off as you go towards the end, just kind of a little bit softer as you head out there. And you can soften it up with a flat tool, your flat loop. I want to reinforce this cheek and really get it nice shadows and round. I know I keep saying that, but it's important to have that cheek feel like there's some form to it. Okay, let's get the small tool. Let's put some more wrinkles in here, and don't just draw a bunch of lines for wrinkles. Kind of imagine that each wrinkle has a meatiness to it. If this were clay, we'd be rolling little pieces of clay and building wrinkles. Well, kind of use your tool and take away the material to reveal some really neat looking forms that might make for wrinkles. Don't just kind of, like I said, don't just draw straight lines all the same direction. Give it a little bit of character. Let's see where this eye, where we want this eye looking. I think kind of maybe towards the center. So we'll just kind of sketch out where we have that iris. Use this small pointy loop and just sketch out the iris. And you see I skip around throughout the sculpture. I'm going to put some little tension, little dimples, kind of like to where this cheek is, to really feel like it's squeezed. So I'm just taking this little tool and do some little dimples over there. On this side, it's a little bit subtle. I want there to feel like that side is tight and this side not. Smooth this out before we go in there and cut any details. Just take the sanding sponge and polish that eye up really good. The small tool can go in a little bit deeper on those nostrils now. And this one nostril is a little bit higher than the other because he's kind of has his face lifted up, squeezed in that direction. And we'll go around that nostril and on the eye here, I'm going to go I'm just kind of sketching in a little deeper here. Really show where I'm going to work on. The eyes are really fun, so you want to take a sharp knife, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut around the whites of the eyes to really pull out a perfect spherical shape before I do any more on the eye. So I'm going to do two cuts. One cut going around the entire eyeball, just kind of cutting straight in, carefully tracing to where I sketch with that small loop. I'm going to go around the entire eyeball, and then I'm going to go a second cut, sort of like what we did the hair. Now the second cut is going to start trimming away and making sure that that eye is tucking around. Now, using the knife is gonna get rid of that really smooth look that I had, but we're gonna go back and sand that and tool it so it's round again. And you could take the knife and kind of, cut it and fix it so it's spherical. But we definitely want to use the knife to kind of gently tuck those lines in nice and tight. So this is like a beveled V cut, and go in there with two cuts. If it doesn't come out the first time, don't pry it out, just cut it again. And get all of the corners out so we have a nice sharp line defining that eye. And then we can go in there with the sponge or the sanding pad and smooth it out. Want to have a nice, clean, round surface before we start this eye. Well, we already started the eye, but before we start the fun part of the eye, the highlight and pupil and all that. Get a little bit deeper in here for this corner. And now for the eye, we're going to trace, just cutting straight in, we're going to trace around the iris. You can go fairly deep now. I'd say, I don't know, like definitely maybe a quarter of an inch. Well, I guess it depends on the size of the pumpkin. But on this one, you could dig it in, because we're going to dig all this material out. The deeper we go, the darker it's going to get. Now I'm going to draw where the highlight is going to be. You want the highlight to overlap the iris and the pupil. So I'm going to carefully draw a circle that will become the highlight. And we want to keep this there. Whatever we do, we don't want to cut this out. We're cutting around it so that as we remove material, it doesn't pull away. Now I'm drawing the pupil. And if the highlight falls off, we could always pin or glue it. But the purist in me likes to have it one solid piece. So after you draw the pupil, then you take that small tool and let's dig out around the highlight. Carefully go in there and dig out around the highlight. And you can see it instantly starts to get darker. This is the magic of doing the eyes. People always ask, are those plastic eyes or acrylic eyes from the photos? And all it is just playing with light and shadow. So let's dig out around it. Really careful not to pull out that highlight. And just remove all that material. You're going to be removing the area that we sketched for the pupil, but we can go in and draw that back in later. Sometimes, you could ignore the whole highlight thing and just, go straight in and pull everything out and add the highlight later with a pin and a piece of pumpkin. So really don't panic if it falls off. You want to remove deeper along the edges. Everyone's eye, regardless of what color it is, it's darker along the edges, on the outer part of it. So we're going to go carve our way deeper when we get to that part. We cut these lines a little bit, and I'm going to bevel. I'm using this knife. I'm going to really cut at an angle to pull out, and you can see how it starts to get even darker on that side. If you can imagine we want this cut, if we want this cut to be deeper on the edges than it is towards the center, so that it's almost like a cone that we're sculpting on the inside, sort of like a volcano. Like if we're looking down onto the shape, forget about the highlight for a second, but if we're looking down into the shape, we're kind of like making like a volcano shape, like a little cone. So now I'm gonna cut into the pupil area, just kind of like a round circle, and carefully cut with that knife. Then we'll go in there and dig that out, and we're gonna dig out all the way to right before we break through. If you do break through, you could always kind of take some pumpkin material and stuff it in there, but you can see once you pull that material out, that deep shadow that you get right next to the highlight really gives an incredible effect. And I'll keep pulling material out here because I want the contrast in these areas to be really rich. So I'm gonna pull a little bit out there. And then you could also bevel that highlight, bevel it so that it is facing, so that the top of it faces the light. So look, see how that got even brighter? Just by cutting at an angle so that the face of it is facing upwards at an angle towards the light. It just kind of enhances that highlight effect. And I'm going to get a little bit more shadows underneath this eyelid here. You may have had on your pumpkin, you could have had that deeper, so you know it's just a soft little shadows I'm creating. Now in this line here, I want to get some nice rich wrinkles around this eye. It's going to really reinforce the fact that he's got some tension. And I want the darkest one to be the center one, where the eye is actually closed. Scrape around the lips a little. Clean them up with that knife. The tool, so here we go. Just kind of dig. Don't be afraid to go. I mean, obviously, if you're about to break through, be careful. But if you're not, really, don't be afraid to pull some rich shadows out of there. Around this tooth, I'm going to use the knife just to get a really fine, thin line around it. Notice that the plane of the tooth is very similar to the upper lip. I'm only going much deeper as it goes into the crevice of the mouth. And I'll make 2 cuts there and then pull out that material. Around the teeth here, it's just a really thin little double cut. We don't want to take too much material out. We want them to look like they're pressing in. And down in between the 2 teeth and pull it out. Real subtle. And I'll probably get a little wider here, so that we can, and not, it doesn't look like it's just one line. You want to change the planes of the teeth a little bit. And we'll cut in some shadows a little bit deeper. Look at that, it's pressing into that upper lip. And that in these corners, you want to, where the 2 teeth meet, a little bit deeper there. Take this flat tool. It's really sharp. You gotta really careful that not to, this one you're going to use real gently because it's got a sharp edge, and we don't want to be too heavy-handed, or else it'll dive into the thing. But it's a great tool to kind of just gently touch the surface and make some subtle wrinkles. You know, we use the knife to make tiny, sharp, deep accent cuts, but this is a great tool to give just really subtle little wrinkles. But you definitely can't be too heavy-handed with this one. A lot of these, a lot of Thai carvers, those types of vegetable and fruit carving, they use sharp tools because a lot of it's a methodical type of carving where it's certain steps and you just kind of go in and commit all the way. The type of sculpting we're doing here is, it's more, you got to kind of intuitive, gently going in to scrape. So we don't want sharp tools. You know, for these little things that like we just did, it's good to have a sharp tool, but we're doing more scraping than actual cutting. So we'll clean this up a little bit with the pad. Let's move on to this chin area. And we'll go back to this little double chin with the flat tool and just kind of scrape a little wrinkle in there. And you hold this point in there, you'd be able to dig in and get enough of a wrinkle. It's like two tools in one almost. I mean, this neck and jowl area, I just kind of want to sculpt a little bit into this area because I want to add ears to this, and I want to at least follow. I want these wrinkles to follow up towards where the ears are gonna go. I don't want to go too far down because I want to leave the rind there because like I said, I do like when the pumpkin carving has orange rind surrounding the entire face if possible. The only time usually it doesn't is when I forget and I get carried away carving. So let me scrub this down smooth. And you can really polish this thing up quite a bit. It really gives that pumpkin has a great ability to give a fleshy look after you polish it. Now for this lip here, I'm gonna use this sharp tool and kind of just give a little bit of an indication of right where the lip turns. Give some meatiness to where the actual lip starts. So we're just gonna kind of scrape a little line there. And that line will be where we actually start to give the texture to the lip. Kind of give that like that earthwormy type feel. We'll just do that by just kind of gently putting some You don't want to overdo this, just a little bit, just some soft lines coming down, and they end right where that line is that we kind of created. It's kind of like a raised surface with some wrinkles on it. And you can kind of just have some coming from the back forward, and not every line needs to go all the way across. It could just be some short ones that kind of fade off. And we'll clean that up a little. You want to make some a little deeper than others. And there's no rules here, just almost looks like a little bit of a worm. You can have some ones going across as well. And this troll's got it's got a meaty lip underbite, so it's gonna kind of clean this off with a sponge, soften up some of our lines. Give some striations on these teeth. He's got some old teeth there. Some worn age to some of them. He's been biting some Hubbard rind, terrorizing the Hubbards. So go in there and just kind of detail and spot. We got this knife. I skip around a lot on the carving, but yeah. Pull some details in his eye. We kind of want a little bit more some diagonal wrinkles that are just didn't have quite enough wrinkles going on that lower eyelid. Clean it out. Draw some of them. Like I said, not all your lines you want to have super sharp. You want a mixture of ones that are cut in with a knife as well as some that are scribed in with a tool. This curved blade's good for getting into spots that are difficult. And let's get this side of the chin. Get a couple of those little dimples up in there underneath those muscles are attaching underneath his lip. And get a few dimples in that chin. Give some tension going on, like a potato. And we'll scrub this chin out, smooth it out, get some of those lines out. I'm gonna go with that really sharp tool here and just get some of these wrinkles that are occurring from this eye lifted up. His brow is lifting up and creating some compression in his forehead. I'm gonna go in here and take the knife, and since we put in those wrinkles, I want to make sure I get those wrinkles cutting deep along the hair as they go in there. So I'm gonna dig the knife in and get those little spots, little shadows fall underneath the rind of the hair. Go in and kind of use that knife and define some of those wrinkles that are on his other brow and lay them out with a smaller loop tool and kind of use the sharp one to gently scrape. Be careful, like I said before, be really light-handed with this tool. And I'm gonna just pull some fine lines with the knife on those lips, just going around the sculpture at this point and tightening things up. And you can use the small loop tool as well. Again, variation, don't cut all the details. Use some with the knife and some with the loop tool. Put a little bit of a kind of separation in the nose, reminiscent of an ape nose. And we're gonna get the knife in here and give a little bit more clarity to what's going on. I want the face really to have a and there you go. It's kind of like the main part of the head. It's pretty much finished with the face. Now I'm gonna draw in some spots where we're gonna put some ears on this guy. So I'm gonna take it from the back of the pumpkin, and I just kind of drew the shapes out and split it in half so I know that I've got the same exact size for each side. And we're gonna take the pumpkin meat for these ears from the back of it. This will ensure that the color of the pumpkin's the same, but you might want to use a donor pumpkin and take it from a totally different pumpkin. That'll allow for your pumpkin to stay fresh longer. you might not have an extra pumpkin, so in that case, take it from here. You can see how thick this pumpkin is. Take a look at the thickness. Even when I cut away some of the guts, that's a pretty nice look. That's a pretty decent sized pumpkin. Now, if you use a donor pumpkin, you won't have. You can use this stuff here for hair, brows, eyebrows, or mustache or something. But we're not going to use that. I'm just kind of showing you. Typically like to explore possibilities with all sorts of parts of the pumpkin. Anyway, let's take these chunks and we're gonna make some ears out of them. Kind of like so. We'll whittle them down a lot smaller. But I just kind of drew some troll-looking ears and cut them out. I'm gonna cut away the junky part of the pumpkin. Get rid of all that shreddy, loose material from the inside. I'm gonna cut it at a curve that kind of matches the pumpkin so that they'll go up against it. And take away all that uncarvable material. And let's see what we got. There's still some pretty big ears. We'll whittle away at them. Let's take that big loop tool and just gonna peel some of that material away and thin it out some. Establish the top rim of the ear. I want these to kind of fold inward a little, so I'm gonna, you can play with the shape of it. You don't have to follow the curve of the actual rind. You could, dig in and create some nice curves. And we're gonna cut around here and fold those ears in a little bit. I'm just using a knife to chop away. It still seems kind of long, pretty big for the ear, so I'm gonna cut away a little at it. And I want these to fit snug against the pumpkin, so I'm just kind of dry fitting it. We'll use some dowels to peg these in when we're done. But here's that copper scrub pad I was telling you about, and with this you can really eat away at the pumpkin. So I'm gonna chisel away at the pumpkin a little bit shorter. I got it too long there. Take my knife and cut it back a little shorter. I'm just kind of, it's just obviously I cut those pieces too big. And I'm gonna dig away at the ear a bit here. We have the opening of the ear is gonna, the outer rib of the ear is gonna curl in some. So just take your tools and carve away, and I'm gonna dig a hole into this area here so it looks like it's folding into it. On the outer edge of the ear,
I'm just taking the loop tool and kind of scraping down so it blends. You can look at it. You can look at kind of like if you want a reference of a human ear, and obviously this is not a human ear. I'm just, but some of those, mapping out some of those structure that you'll find in it, just kind of make yourself up a troll ear. Use a scrub pad to clean up all the scratch marks on here. This is really it's a sad looking ear I have here, but I think it'll work. Let's see. There we go. It's looking a little bit better. I think I still need to cut some more on there to get the right angle. And I'm going to notch the pumpkin out a little bit, and this way this will fit into it. And I'm going to take some skewers, and after I notch a pumpkin out, I'll stick it into the area that I've notched out, and this way it'll hide that seam a little bit better. So using a knife, I'm just going to trace out the ear, the opening, and I'll remove that rind the same way which we did with the hair. Just gonna kind of remove the rind. I might go a little bit deeper. Try to keep it flush, the pump, and you can use that sharp. This sharp tool is a good one to get in there and clean it up so that it fits in there pretty good. Stuff going on this ear. You don't want to do the ears too thin because they will dry out. So you notice I kept these fairly thick. I'm gonna go a little bit thinner over here just so that they're not so straight. I want them to have a little bit of just kind of a little bit more form to them. But you want to do the ears chunky, only because if you do these ears thin, the pumpkin's gonna wilt on you, dry out, and you're not gonna have any ears at all. So keep them a little bit, keep some thickness to it. Notice I left some rind on the back as well. That helps add strength to it. You don't want to carve away the rind side and work towards the inside. You want to start carving away from the inside towards the rind, because the rind's going to give some strength there. Just taking this little tool and scrub it out, clean this ear up. I'm just going to take some wood dowels, skewers. You can get skewers at a grocery store, and I just cut it a little bit shorter. Place the ear in there and just start pinning it from different directions. You can pin it from this inside part of the ear because you're not going to be able to see it. So I'm just going to push it in there and hold it for now while I work on the other ear. I don't want to secure it all the way just in case I have to tweak it or something. I can pull it off and work it. So I'm just going to repeat the ear to this, what I just did to this right side. And this way, now that they're off, I'm able to work on both of them at the same time if I want. This way I could make sure they're roughly about the same size and whatnot. And I'll secure them permanently when they're both done. Just kind of tweaking this shape here some with this tool. Again, getting references is definitely helpful. Once you've done anything enough with reference, you could always do it without and make it up. And
as you go, but it's important to at least in the beginning, as you're learning to sculpt, try to get some sort of visual reference. Sometimes maybe a toy. Good idea is sometimes get some toys that are sculpted well and get spray painted gray. This way it gets rid of all the paint and the things that might be on the surface of it that might distract you. Whittle away a little at this here and maybe notch this side so that I could see how they might look side by side alongside the head. I think this is a much better size now. They were a bit too big before. Scrub this down a little bit. And throw some skewers in here so I can see them. Alright. Just cut these shorter so I can push them all the way in there. Be careful doing this part. You don't want to break the ear off. I think I should go a little bit deeper here. Just clean this up before, once I pin this on there permanently, it's gonna be hard to work on. So I definitely want to get it all. You want to get it all smooth out and ready to go before you pin it, because you don't just want to put one skewer. You want to put some skewers in from the back and different angles, and really get those ears in there securely. Now I'm just gonna touch up some areas. I'm gonna kind of get some little skin texture, just some subtle skin texture going on here. So I'm gonna take this little tool and drag it across the surface, especially where there might be some lines going. He's got his cheek and side of his face lifted up here, so I'm just gonna drag the tool around and kind of reinforce somewhere those wrinkles might be. And sometimes you don't just drag the tool instead of just doing one big wrinkle. Sometimes it's nice to do a couple of smaller ones that are staggered, where these teeth are bending, folding into the skin. Get some little small little wrinkles there. Clean up around a little bit of an undercut. Just slightly. I'm taking that tool and just slightly cleaning up around the hair and just kind of dragging it to give a little undercut around that hair. Digging out some of these, just pulling out some of the shadows a little bit more. There you see the eye. You can see here how the eye picks up that highlight. See how let it angle like that? The highlight really is just a long extension of pumpkin that, when viewed from forward, really gives the illusion of being a highlight. You don't want to overdo the highlight if it's not going to be viewed from the front, mainly from the front, because when viewed from the side it looks kind of odd, but it really does look cool when viewed head on. You can see there. And back to the front again. There it is. There's your pumpkin troll. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly had fun. Good luck carving your pumpkin. Remember, the most important thing is pick a good pumpkin, and don't get discouraged if you pick out a bad one. Do what you can, learn your way around it, but just keep looking for a better one, because there's some, you definitely once in a while carve into a really, really, really cool pumpkin.